Welcome to Zen and the Art of Homeschooling. I'm Ollie Malley,
And I'm Michael Malley.
and today we're going to talk about conflict between parent and child, and how that becomes a little more complex when you add parent-child teacher to the equation.
Yes.
And Michael and I have plenty of experience in this,
And we've had
and
conflicts with the kids?
a few in the
Oh,
last
oh,
30
yeah,
years, yeah.
just a few.
And we're going to try to give you a different perspective on it, and hopefully help to relieve some of those conflicts.
Yeah.
So with homeschooling, there is a lot more opportunity for conflict, but there is a lot more opportunity, because of the time you have together, for learning together, for fun, for connecting with your kids in different ways.
Sure.
And so, yeah, looking at it like that.
Because if there's more connection, there's also going to be more conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also going to be more good connections. So, this is part of it, is like, how do we deal with this conflict? How do we deal with it? Because guess what? It is going to arise, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing we would recommend is, and we've talked about this before, is having routines,
Mm-hmm.
having expectations, and having limits on your kids, and having those be pretty clear. Because I think a lot of our conflicts with our kids have come from unclear expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and throwing something at them when they weren't expecting it.
Right. So of course we need flexibility, and of course things are going to shift from day to day. But when you have that basic structure, when the kiddo knows this is expected, and this is expected, Monday through Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or this is expected on Saturday morning, it makes it easier. It may be tough at first, right? Because they're going to resist that structure. But once you get the structure in place, then you say, okay, this is what we do. And they can kind of get into the routine of that. And most of us do better when we have that clarity. Even in our marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we know something's coming up, we can handle it better, right? So that's that will help to reduce, right? We're not talking about eliminating conflict, but we're saying, what can we do to ameliorate it, to lessen it, to make it less difficult for our relationships, and less difficult within our families, within our homes.
Right, yeah. And also thinking about what causes conflict. A lot of conflict is caused by the differences in the parent-child relationship. The parent is there to protect the child and to teach the child things that you feel are important to teach them. And the child all the time is trying to be independent and trying to exert their independence. Yeah. And a lot of the conflict comes in when those two things come together. And so one of the things we suggest with homeschooling is to give the child some agency and some choice over their activities. Not completely, because you're going to be getting things from the schools and deciding what things you're going to be doing, having routines for those, but then letting them have some choice.
Mm-hmm. So this is fancy word, individuation, right? Because they're trying to form themselves as individuals, and this is going to vary upon their age, right? It's very different with a first grader versus somebody who's in 10th grade, right? In terms of how much of that they're trying to do. And as parents and as homeschool teachers, we're in this dance of guiding and helping and being clear about expectations, while also giving them the space to become who they are, which will be different than what we might ultimately want, but we're trying to have our influence there as well, right? So that's that balance. That's one of the balances. I think one of the things that's happening right now with this coronavirus, and we spoke of this before, is our children are having to sacrifice some things that they're not used to having to sacrifice, at least here in the States, where, hey, I want this, and I want to have this party, I want to do this with my friends, I can't. And so there's also opportunities for growth here, some sort of balance between that individual growth and development, and what are my commitments, expectations relative to the family, or relative to our community, or relative to society. Yeah.
Right. And I think, like you said, some of this is going to depend on age, and how much independence you give them. And a lot of kids are not used to that much independence, no matter what age they are, whether they're in middle or high school. Also, they're used to being told this is what you have to do and this is when you have to do it and show up at this time. And so having this freedom, for some kids it might be great and they're gonna go on their own and they're gonna do it, and other kids aren't. And so that's where you're gonna have to step in. And you are if you're, especially if you're doing a lot of what the school's giving you, you are kind of the administrator. You're watching over to see that they're doing things, and you're going to have to figure out how much you hand over to them and how much that you are watching what they're doing. And that's going to depend on how independent you think your kid is, and what you see in terms of the results.
Let me give you a concrete example of something where you can start to give this kind of choice. Okay, so maybe we're going to have math 3-4 times a week. So you can have a conversation, and this could be with a third grader or with an eighth grader. All right, you got to do some math today. Do you want to do that around 10 a.m. or do you want to do that around 2 p.m.? And they might say, how about 3 p.m.? And you might say, sure. They have some choice. They have a bit of agency. They have to do the math, right? But they have some agency. Or, okay, from this time to this time, we don't want you on the screen. We don't want you doing the video games, but you could do this. You could read this book, or, you could work on that project out in the garage, or you could, be doing this out in the yard, and have these things be of interest to them. Sometimes, and we used to find this with our kiddos a lot, you give them a choice between A, B, and C. You know what they choose? D. They choose something else. But if that D is a good choice, or even an okay choice, then let them go with that. Here, again, we're teaching them how to make choices. This is one of the things that I often talked about with my children when they were, in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. Look, there's going to come a time pretty soon where daddy's not going to be able to stand there and stop you from doing thus and such. So you have to get some of that within yourself. So giving them the ability to make choices, and then to be sure that they're making okay choices or good choices, even if it's not the choice that you would have made, but it's an okay choice, that is good. And then we need with that some accountability, like, okay, 3 o'clock, did you do that math? Yes or no? And then what do we do about that for the next day? Yeah.
I think another thing that causes conflict too, and that could cause conflict with this, is that you get worried that your kid is not doing enough. Okay, so you don't feel like they're doing enough school, or they're not getting enough learning in. And then when you start to feel nervous and you express that to the kid, that can cause conflict. And so one of the things that we do as homeschool parents is we write down what our kids have been doing. And we don't do this every day. Some parents do, some homeschool parents do, but maybe every week, or maybe every couple days, whatever's going to help you, maybe even every day.
Yeah.
That you write down, these are the activities that happened. And when you look over the week, or you're going to look back over the month, you're going to see so many things that happened, so many things that we're learning, that each individual day or individual hour, you're like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know what's going on, or I don't feel very successful at this. But looking back and keeping track, we read this book, we did this game together, and thinking about how much learning was in that.
Yeah, and pay attention to what Ollie's sharing here. And I would say, I wish we were doing it every day. And, it's, again, we can work towards that. I think every day is good because you forget things. But she's not just talking about the math and the reading here, right? Like going on a walk together. Oh, you were working with your older brother on, how to fix a bike. You did that for 2 hours yesterday, right? You were helping in the garden. You did that this week. Oh, you helped, we have a schedule where people help out with the meals. Oh, you made dinner for us on Wednesday night with a little bit of help from dad or mom or an older sibling. All of these things, and you'll start to see. So part of what that will do is let them see that. Look at what you're accomplishing, dude. Like, this is amazing. I know it stinks that, you're not there with your friends at school, but look at some of the cool things that are happening here, right? And building in that those affirmations, and very specific, right? Like, I can't play, 8 chords on a guitar. You can, right? I mean, all of those things, and creating that. Hey, the way you're exercising, all of these things we talked about, mind, body, spirit. All of these things kind of, and giving them some feedback on it, and giving you the feedback then as well.
Yeah. One of the strategies that we talked about early on here is taking a deep breath. It is stepping away and knowing when to step away, knowing how far to push. And again, that's all a balance. And it's not going to be right every single time. You're not going to feel good about it every single time. But knowing that you can step away and taking a breath and stepping away is usually better than having an argument with your kid. And this happens, with people, long-term homeschool people all the time.
Well, it happens in families.
It happens in families. And you stepping away is also teaching your kids that it's okay for them to step away and how to do it in an appropriate way instead of storming away, so being able to use words like, I'm going to stop right now because I'm not in a good space.
Right.
And being able to listen to each other. So for them being able to listen to you and you being able to listen to them and read the signs.
As parents, we have a conflict with our kids and we want to force a resolution right now. If they're in a, pissy mood, it's not going to happen, right? And the same thing as if you are, right? So sometimes we need that back off space. I mean, so often I think we want the resolution right now. We want this problem solved. And oftentimes just give each other some space so that you can come back. I can't even begin to count how many times with these 4 kids that we've been raising over 25, 30 years, I can't even begin to count how many times where there was this really abrasive conflict and where we were able to create the space, just give them some space. And sometimes it's, I need the space. Like, I know I am not in a good place. I am not going to work well with you. I'm not going to work to find a good resolution right now. Create the space, and then you come back and we're a little more sane. I'm a little more sane, they're a little more sane, and we can work things out in a better way. So again, one of the things I think about in terms of marriage or in terms of with our kids, we're in this for the long haul, right? So like, everything doesn't have to be solved today, right? Or this hour. So we can create the space and know that we're in this dance. And then when we're in a good space together, even without overplaying it, and there's some skillful means here, but you can sometimes joke about, oh yeah, you and I are going to bang heads sometimes. And you kind of recognize that as part of that's part of the dynamic of life, right? And it doesn't have to be, such a super big deal. Like, oh, okay, we're having the conflict, we're banging heads. I'm stubborn, I get angry, you do. Let's give ourselves some space. Yeah.
Oh. So in summary, conflict.
Yeah.
Conflicts is going to happen between parents and child. And adding the dimension of school adds another opportunity for conflict, but it adds an opportunity for learning together and joyous experiences together and more time together.
Absolutely.
And what we would recommend is think about your routines. Think about expectations that you have.
Yeah. Create some space for choices, right? That's going to empower them, give them some agency. Yeah.
Yeah. And looking at the things you've done throughout the day and keeping track of that so you feel good about what's happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And you can share that with them too, or even do that together and let them see. Make sure there's affirmations in there because guess what? This is tough on your kiddos, just like it's tough on you. Affirmations for the wonderful things that they are doing. Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally, when conflict happens, being able to have some space and to step away.
Yeah.
And then to come back from a place of strength.
Yeah. Yeah. And to recognize that this is part of the deal. And as Ollie said, this is part of the learning, right? Because we're going to have conflicts in life, whether it's with our partners, with friends, with coworkers. How do we handle those conflicts? The learning around that is part of your homeschooling.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you another day.